Feeling fine.
We're going to start whatever karaoke soon.
Faithandwhatever. Hey, what is up? Welcome back. What are we on? Episode 3090?
Something like that.
38, something like that. I'm super excited to be with you today. This discussion we are having in lieu of the Halloween season approaching. We'll be focusing on whether or not churches ought to be utilizing Halloween, how they should be doing it, if they are, and the like. We are joined today by a special guest and really youth ministry master extraordinaire, kind of has written the book on youth ministry, as it were. A gentleman by the name of Evan Siggson, who also happened to be my youth pastor when I was in high school, and was kind of the one who pushed a handful of us to go into ministry and continue on despite the experiences that we had that might have been negative. And so we're really excited to be here with you today, Evan.
Hello.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your experience, and just kind of who you are, and if you have any social media stuff to plug or any Twitter handles or anything like that. I don't know. Do you do any of that stuff?
Not really. No.
Okay. So just who are you?
My name's Evan. I've been a youth pastor in Southern California for, 14 years now. I've been fired from 2 mega churches.
That's a real achievement.
I don't trust anyone who hasn't been fired from somewhere.
Yeah. Just the adolescent time period is very important to my heart.
That's the single best self-intro I think I've ever heard in any capacity.
It's tough out there in adolescent world, and so that students in that time phase, they deserve lots of caring adults, so that's where my heart lies.
Okay, well, we're super excited. You are currently working on your D-Min, is that correct, in youth stuff?
I'm working on my D-Min out in Fuller, Pasadena.
Man, the school of heathens. Most of the best research probably comes from on youth. So, okay, let's jump right into the topic. Halloween, Evan, yes, no, churches utilize, not utilize, good for youth. What do you think?
This is a complex question.
Okay, well, answer it simply.
Okay. Yes, we're all done, right? First off, I like to point out that it's originally a Christian holiday.
One of the only ones that we celebrate, by the way, that has Christian roots.
Yes. All Saints Day and Hallows Eve would be the day before that. And so what's very ironic to me...
Christians would go out dressed, scantily clad, walking around the streets. Right? That's
sexy pagan.
That's been the holiday from the beginning.
Copy and paste, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. The irony of it to me is that churches will push back on Halloween, but then they'll celebrate something called a Harvest Festival, which is pagan rooted. And so I guess to play my hand a little bit, I'm more comfortable with churches having Halloween parties than Harvest Festivals.
Okay, so this is good because we Harvest Fests are a big thing there around this area, right? You got to call it something that's not Halloween, that doesn't have the name, but you still do the exact same thing.
Coincidentally on the same day.
Yeah,
yes.
And so some of that stuff is nominal, right? Which is meaning like in name only, not really a change, same thing, just a different name, which is a little bit, I think, disingenuous if we're completely honest with that. So you would say 4 in your own experience, your own ministry stuff. James, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been of you can appropriate things. That's how I've always felt about it. If Christmas is an appropriation of another holiday.
What about culture?
Right. You can appropriate culture for sure. And that's what we've done. We all like Christmas. Most Christians celebrate Christmas. There are a few small niche denominations that butt against it. But for the most part, that's like a well celebrated international holiday for Christians, right? It's Christmas. But it's an appropriation of other holidays, of other celebrations, and I there's nothing wrong with that for me, honestly. I think it's fine. That doesn't bother me whatsoever, and I don't see why we can't also appropriate Halloween. The question is, though, it gets a little more complicated with Halloween because you have far more dissenting opinions in your average church about it, right? You don't have many people in churches worried about Christmas, but you have a lot more worried about Halloween and also what you wear at Halloween and what you celebrate and blah, 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 blah. And so it gets a little complicated, and sort of navigating that can be a little challenging. If it's just me getting to decide everything, I mean, enjoy Halloween. So a Halloween celebration at the church.
What do we do with regular? So say we go and decide to have a Halloween party, right?
Right.
And we're gonna not call it Harvest Fest, which I hate. I hate putting on a Harvest Fest. It's so time consuming. It sucks my energy out like nothing else. So we decided to celebrate Halloween. We're going for it. But we have demons and witches and those. So how do you deal with those costumes? Is that a big deal?
I mean, I think,
is it another meat sacrifice to idols if you're Paul kind of thing?
I mean, I think what you have to do is when you're advertising it, just, make the unofficial statement that's, come on, guys, you're coming to church. Don't do anything that's going to be problematic for the community. I mean, if you want to dress up as that for your own fun, we're not here to judge you. But when you come to church, maybe don't come dressed up as Satan. Maybe don't do that. That's the kind of mature conversation you can have either from the pulpit or from like an announcement situation that I think most people will listen to and understand. Right. And if anybody, if somebody still comes, that means either A, they weren't listening and that's problem A, or B, they were trying to offend, and then that's a new conversation, right? So,
or C, they just weren't from your church anyway. And then you just welcome them in and say, here's some extra candy for showing up to our church.
And a new costume.
And
we'll just put a white sheet over you, cut some eyeballs here, there you go.
And now you're a racist.
You're a ghost.
Ghost. So, okay, good. So what would you do? How would you handle a situation like this if something pops up and it's a discussion about, hey, we've decided to move forward as a church. We're going to celebrate Halloween. Do you have limitations that you yourself as Evan puts on these types of events, or are you even okay with people coming dressed as ghouls and goblins and
I like that you said ghouls.
The parochial, or yeah,
all those ghouls out there.
All 9 of them.
Now, my intention with Halloween in church is something actually completely different. And
okay.
Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But to answer your question, I would go back to, every day is a day created by God, and so therefore that day is good. That, this is the day that the Lord has made, and we'll rejoice in that day. And so there's nothing inherently evil about that day. Like, that day belongs to God. Now, what we choose to do on that day, certainly we can do evil on that day. But I think the first thing is that Christ followers need to realize that that day does not belong to the evil sector of our universe. That day actually belongs to God. In thinking about how do we dress, so then I would apply that same rubric to any other day.
Okay.
In terms of Christ followers, which is we shouldn't be living any differently that day as the day before or the day after. And so in terms of questions like what is appropriate dress or what's an appropriate game or etc., I would just treat it like any other day.
So I guess I kind of divert from you guys a little bit. I don't have a problem with anything with this. If people show up dressed as Satan, I don't know. That doesn't bother me for whatever reason.
What if it's one of your 16 or 17-year-old youth girls and she's dressed up as sexy Satan?
Now that one I would say and ask hey, just don't wear something that's going to be too revealing for the sake of just kind of appropriateness across the board. And I would ask that of males too, right? Don't come dressed without a shirt on or super low cut pants or whatever that would be. So I would cut that across the board both ways there. But as far as the intentionality behind it, I don't, it just doesn't, for whatever reason, it doesn't bother me that much. I understand why we don't do it there, but I'm interested. You said your contention is with something else entirely. What is that? What is that something else?
I mean, to me, it's hard to read where culture is even at on Halloween, and I've wavered back and forth. Where definitely the culture of trick or treating has changed, where we're more protective,
right,
and less involved with our neighbors. As a kid, I trick or treated, and
I only got 3 razor blades trick or treating. I don't understand what.
I remember that was a big scare in the 80s,
yeah.
and nothing ever happened. But so to me, the question is, what does it mean to be a blessing to our neighbors and community in Halloween? Part of me as a pastor would say, I don't want to do anything on our property. Let's send the Christ followers home, and you need to pass out candy to your neighborhood.
Yeah,
and
amen.
Be a blessing to your street and get to know your neighbors and be a blessing to those kids.
Yeah.
At the same time, I've tried to do that and have 6 kids come to my house because our culture has shifted into, I think they enjoy the carnival big thing that you commute to. And so I think the question the church needs to wrestle with is, what does this mean for us in the community? Is it a blessing to have a thing at our church and to provide a quote unquote safe alternative party.
Those two words, man. Safe alternative. We're like,
Yes.
they're coming up in so many church rooms across America right now.
Or is it a blessing to say, no, we want to even be a little countercultural and almost try to create a culture of neighborhoodness and invite our neighbors to come over and visit on our streets again? And I don't think I can answer that question.
Gun to your head, you have to pick one.
If you had to push me, I would probably turn the church off and say, go home, turn your lights on at your house, and make your neighbors aware you're there to pass out candy and get to know your neighbors. And
Now, like, to dig into that a bit, a lot of that perspective, and I'm not arguing the perspective, I'm talking about what's at its root, which is the church itself is a very different sort of grouping of people. It used to be you went to the church that was 5 minutes from your home, walking distance, that the church was the community, not necessarily 100% of it, but every person going to that church lived around that church. It was a meeting place of the community, at least believing community.
Like a community center almost.
But now people will drive 20 miles to go to church. They'll drive a lot farther than that sometimes to go to church. That churches are more like a grouping of like-minded people from all over the distant place, which is, and I think your perspective is coming out of that new development of the church, which is go home and build your community. Because it used to be, what you said wouldn't make sense because the argument would be, well, the church is the community, it's in the community, but it's not anymore. And maybe that what's going on here is there's a problem with how we're forming church, right? We're not forming as a community. We're forming by finding like-minded people, and that maybe at the root here then is that there's actually some kind of disease in that, and so now we have to actually try to teach our pew fillers, you need to have community, which to some degree means turning off the church you're going to because you're leaving your community to go to church. So that just kind of came to mind while you were saying what you were saying. Might have taken us astray a bit.
No, I think it's perfect because I would actually take this ideology and build off of it entirely in that. So I'm with you. I would, unless you're a church like Saddleback or Mariners, unless you're like a 10,000.
I haven't heard of those, Josh.
A 10,000 person plus church. If I'm a church that's a little bit smaller in size, I'm just not going to do anything because I'm going to say it's not. To me, the opportunity cost is not worth what I have to give up, which is a night in terms of being able to be out with people, be doing these things. But I'm going to actually encourage my small group pastor, whoever that is, to encourage his small group leaders to not only have people over, but to walk around in their community or whatever it looks like in their neighborhood and kind of hang out, spend time, but just be intentional about being a face together or inviting people over to their home and almost have like these small gatherings inside of people's houses that are kind of like Halloween parties in and of themselves, like but
maybe even like front yard parties.
Yeah,
front yard parties on Halloween.
Do stuff that's there, right? And just like a bounce house that kids could stop by and play in for 5-10 minutes as they're on their way, or something.
Dress up as a murderer, run around, pretending you're gonna stab people,
or that clown
for Jesus.
The clown fiasco that is really creepy. That's kind of happening right now.
I'm curious about whether the clown fiasco is actually happening or if the media has invented it as an echo chamber thing.
I think it's promotion for the new It movie that comes out next June. Because there was a clown spotted in Huntington Beach at a junior high school, just hanging out there like 2 a.m. So that's a thing. So whatever. But so I like this idea of being in the community and not thinking that community is limited to the church, because that's the mistake that we make when we do these like trunk or treat things or these problems, that if you're not going out and actively inviting people or grabbing them from the community and saying, hey, come to you. And if your church isn't like my church isn't located directly in a neighborhood, right? I'm in a business park. I have to go to, 2 miles outside of where I'm at to find people, that kind of thing, mile, whatever it might be. But I think it's valuable to actually keep people into their neighborhoods and say, hey, hang out. Like, I think a front yard party is probably the best idea I've heard in terms of kind of orchestrating that. So any other thoughts? Chris, you got anything? Nope. They're pretty good. So... Okay, fair enough. So ultimately,
Chris's corner. Nope. Done.
It's gonna rain. Thanks, Ollie. So are you doing anything this Halloween?
Like personally?
Yeah, personally, on a personal level.
So yeah, we go to a friend's house and we show the Charlie Brown Christmas movie outside on his driveway, and we hang out there. With
Okay, so you're already doing the front yard party.
A bunch of
You've been sandbagging us this whole 10-minute conversation because you're already doing the front yard party.
No, it's not. It's,
So cool guy over here. He's already
I mean,
six steps ahead of us.
The issue again I'm still wrestling with is what do non-Christ follower people, what do they want? Like, what makes their Halloween a good day?
Money.
I mean, the idea of if you have a neighborhood and imagine all the Christ followers in that neighborhood just eject and like run to church buildings. Like, I just can't imagine that that's a good feel for that neighborhood. But unless there's a possibility that these neighborhoods that people don't want to do neighborhood things anymore. They want to go to the big building with all the stuff. But then is it also possibly our role to say, well, that's not healthy, and so we don't want to give that to you. Like, we want to reinvest into the concept of neighbor, which is drastically leaving our culture.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I'll tell you what they're really doing, which is what my family's been doing the last few years, leaving our neighborhood to find a rich neighborhood to go trick-or-treat at.
Yeah, and so that, I think your question brings up some important caveats for understanding, like, there's going to be different desires for people at different life stages, right? People with young families are probably going to want to find or probably have a greater understanding of a sense of community and like-minded desires to find other individuals who share that same life stage, right? If you've got kids that are under 5, you probably want to find and pair with other families that are under 5 and be able to share in that common experience. But James, your kids are a little bit older there, so it's more of that maybe not isolated, but specific, purposeful quality time with the family, and you turn maybe a little bit more insular than communal at that point in terms of wanting to make sure your girls have a fun time in that night because it's good family bonding time. So I think that mind shift might switch and change depending on where you find the age of your kids and what that looks like, right? Because when I was in junior high school, my parents were just stoked when we were out of the house, right? And kind of being able to just hang out and either pass candy out at their whim or turn their light off at 6:30 and go to bed because they're super tired because they still work that day. So I don't know. I think that I don't know if that answers the question.
And there's another option, which is just kind of a slight nuance, which is, as a community, go join as a church, go join a larger community of people. So instead of trying to be the place where everybody comes to you, as a church, go join a larger community event.
So smaller churches should go to Saddleback, is what you're saying.
No, don't go join another church. Go join the larger community in an event being put on for everybody, right? Not just for people trying to find
So like
seekers.
the city of Long Beach will do big things, right? They'll do like these movie nights out on the lawn kind of thing, or on the beach, right? So maybe having a church saying, hey, we're going to go there, right? We're going to go be a part of that, or we're going to do something like that. Is that more in line kind of with what you would think would be a healthier prescription for how we handle Halloween as a church?
I think it's tapping into the real questions. Again, I have a problem calling something outreach when it's so you have to come to our property.
Yeah.
That's in reach. It's not outreach. It's attractional.
Yeah.
And if your church thinks you're gonna cook bad hot dogs and put Tootsie Rolls in trunks, and all these families are gonna come to the Christ and start tithing at your church, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You know, these are people consuming a product because you're setting it up that way as a product to be consumed. You're competing with other churches. And so, and they will sniff it out a mile away. If it is a bait and switch, we're giving you something because we want you to be on our property. They will sniff that out, and they will take your candy and leave, and you won't see them again until next Halloween.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I mean, I think we pretty much feel like we solved the issue.
So make sure you hand out tracks
entirety.
instead of
Yeah, we
candy.
solved it all right.
So tracks instead of treats. Track or treat.
Well, this is a
People
first
will
step
love
this is a first step in a longer conversation. We're going to explore Halloween a bit for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, so
this is a good start.
2 or 3 weeks of that recording will be these recordings will be talking as that. But take what Evan has said to kind of heart, and also if you are on some type of committee for planning or for doing something that's trunk or treat related or a harvest festival alternative, whatever that might be, take a look inside your community, inside your church walls with your people, and ask yourself if that's actually the best use of your resources. Because if you are turning your church into a product to be consumed, we who are in the church know how unhealthy of a mindset that already is at the beginning. So let us know what you're going to be doing in the comments. Feel free to like or share this video with people around you. We would love to see this thing kind of catch fire. I'm at Josh_Carmen. This is at Evan Siggson on, I don't know, social media.
On life.
At James YUILE. Chris is at Marion Ranch. And you can find us at faithandwhatever.com. Thanks so much.